The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Jagermeister. Give your beer a real shot this summer with an ice-cold shot. Jagermeister. Let's talk World Cup. I know nothing about soccer. People know that I hate soccer, but what you should do is give the episode a like anyway, and rate and review on iTunes, on Spotify, no matter where it is, because I have pulled in a real guest to help me talk about this, and not only fill me in, who knows nothing about this, although I do really enjoy the World Cup, so I do want to know if my team isn't in it. Not America. No, I never root for the U.S. when it comes to soccer, please. I'm a Dutch fan. They're out. I'm sorry, my Italian brethren, although I'm not Italian, so you're not really my brethren, but they're out too, so that's no fun. And I just get to laugh at the Americans because, like my home country of Canada, not in the World Cup. Pretty funny. Jordan Cooper on the line from the Roto World Soccer Pod and the Fantasy Flush Podcast. DK Live contributor. My man, thank you for doing this and bearing with my lack of knowledge.
No problem whatsoever. It's very fun to troll soccer fans.
It can be, but I mean, you can troll soccer fans by giving your beer a real shot this summer with the Jagermeister. Are you going to do it? You going to put the Jagermeister in your beer?
I'll think about it. Probably not at 8 a.m. when the games are on.
That's when you should be doing. Get all fired up for soccer. Should I be calling it football? Because I think that's going to confuse the people who watch my show.
Well, I think we said before the show that because I don't have a British accent, that somehow I don't have credibility as far as soccer is concerned. But I'm not a snob when it comes to using the Britishisms. It's fine to call it a field, a jersey. You don't have to call it a fixture list. It's a schedule. Yeah, we're all Americans here, or well, half of us are.
Oh, we're all North Americans here. It's like when people get really uppity about hockey and they're like, they're not called jerseys. They're called sweaters. Who cares, man? No one cares about hockey, so no one cares about this. But World Cup, people do care about it, obviously. So I really want to get into the favorites, really. I want to know the top-end teams that I should be looking at. So when I look at the odds to begin with, and we just go straight to the top, you got Brazil and Germany, one's 4-1, one's 4.5-1. And then you have France and Spain, 6.5-1. Argentina, 8-1. Belgium is 9-1. How the hell is Belgium this good? What am I missing here? Is this what happened to the Dutch? Belgium took all their players and put them all together, and now they have a super team?
Well, if you take a look at Belgium of the past, 2 World Cup cycles, their front four is possibly as good as any other front four in the entire world. They have Lukaku up top, Hazard, De Bruyne, Mertens, who plays in Napoli. But it's 3 top-end Premier League players. They have a solid defense. Courtois in goal, plays for Chelsea. These are name players. They've underperformed based on their individual talent, but Belgium is while not being one of the top favorites, would be considered a dark horse candidate to hoist the World Cup.
Well, they could be a dark horse all they want. They're lower than 10-1. They're the 6th favorite on the board when it comes down to it. What's the separation between Belgium and England? Because England is next at 16-1, so they're significantly lower odds than someone like England. It seems to me like your casual person, let's say me, casual person just kind of jumping into this. You see the teams that you recognize, that you understand are good at soccer, and then you see Belgium in there, and you see these low odds. It seems like this is the team that everyone's going to gravitate towards that aren't the favorites, yet they seem to be a favorite.
Well, in soccer, the disparity between the teams is much greater than probably any other sport, especially in the World Cup. Actually, the Euro is maybe the more competitive tournament every 4 years because you get 24 of European teams, while now they don't all qualify for the World Cup. You get the Saudi Arabias, you get Senegal and Tunisia. And, I look at the odds at the very bottom and go they're from an expected value perspective, actually probably better because Saudi Arabia, if they were plus 1 million odds, would still be a bad bet because there's no possible way that they're going to win the World Cup. But if you want to take them at even at plus 4,000 to just even win the group, to me is almost like throwing money away. So that's why taking a look at England at 16-1, it's you'd have to give me 80-1, 100-1, 200-1 to take England to win the World Cup. Now you could take if you have prop bets where, they make the quarterfinals, they win the group, things like that, I think there may be value in those types of bets, not necessarily for England, but those types of bets for the second tier teams in these groups. But as far as like winning the World Cup, I mean, you're pretty much looking as low as Belgium, unless you're banking on something that like never happened in the history of the World Cup type of thing.
Okay, so if the Euros are a more competitive tournament, although albeit smaller than the World Cup, when we see someone like Greece or Iceland make these deep runs into the Euros, is there any, could a team like that make one of these deep runs? Whether it be, I always, from a logic standpoint, if some of these South American teams are playing Argentina and Brazil all the time, maybe they're not so bad. Maybe they're not as good as those teams and could beat some of the middle tier Euro teams.
Well, sure, that'll happen in the group stage. I mean, there will be group stage upsets. They may be, a team like Argentina maybe ends up coming in third and not even advancing out of the group. But even if something like happens where Nigeria wins the group, they ain't going to win the World Cup. They still have to go through 4 other teams, which is going to include Brazil and Germany and France. And while they could have one of those upsets, even with Iceland in the Euros, once they hit France, you're done. At that point, you're not going to get that string of results with such a gap in talent that you could expect these win outright bets to be kind of worthwhile rather than going with anyone that's 10-1 or lower odds wise.
Okay, so if we stick to that below 10-1 range, and would make Belgium, like you said, a dark horse, even though they're 9-1. You got Brazil, Germany, France, Spain, Argentina. So are those the 5 teams that you think have a legitimate shot of winning here?
Yes, I mean, I think Brazil, Germany, France, Spain, Argentina, and maybe Belgium. You could make a case, I guess, maybe for Portugal, only because Cristiano Ronaldo is still Cristiano Ronaldo, and he could have one hell of a tournament and score a ton of goals, but the cast of characters around him, aren't as good as any of the top teams. So a Portugal to reach the semifinals type of thing, I could see even at 20 plus 2,500. If you want to put $5 down, soccer is, you're going to see lines in these individual games. If you go in the group stage that you'll never see in other sports. Uruguay versus Saudi Arabia. Uruguay's gonna be the line must be out. I'm guessing they're minus 4,500 to win or something like that. You don't see those types of upsets because it's the gap in quality is just ridiculous. It's similar to an NBA team playing a MAC college basketball team, the Warriors versus them. And then going, it's plus 45,000. Why don't I put $10 down? It's you really think that's going to happen?
Well, the only thing I can see happening with any of these long shots, Russia's 40-1, and it's in Russia. So this entire thing could be rigged, couldn't it?
I said that on the slate this past Friday, that I think my surefire pick from a cynical angle is to bet Russia to advance from their group, whatever, even if you have to lay odds. That they don't have a team that could go far. I think in their group, Egypt has somewhat of a chance. I think Uruguay beats them. The Russian team isn't all that great, but like you said, it's in Russia. It's Vladimir Putin, and the referees could be intimidated. And at some point though, the talent gap is going to materialize. They're going to play a much better team. And no matter how many good calls go in their favor, they're going to end up losing. But I don't think they want to be embarrassed by not making out of the group stage when they're hosting.
So if you say there's a huge gap between these very top teams and even the next rung of teams that comes through, like the Portugals and the Englands of the world, of the top teams, is there a gap between them? Are Germany and Brazil significantly better than the other 4 teams that are less than 10-1, or are they pretty clustered together?
They're pretty clustered together. It really depends on a lot of these teams, how they're going to play. Brazil play a certain style. I think they're consistent. Germany, it should be the favorite based on their squad. But you have teams like Spain, who Diego Costa leading the line. They didn't bring Morata into the squad. If they're not they have a great midfield, but if they can't put goals in the back of the net, they may have a short. It's more of short-term variance concerns. France has the players that they left out of the squad could beat, I would say, 90% of the teams in this tournament. The problem is that the players that they do have, what system do you play? Because Pogba and Griezmann, and do they play 4-3-3? Do they play 4-2-3-1? How does that all work together? Do they want to play Giroud up top as a center forward, but that kind of then if Griezmann plays underneath, a lot of this has to do with managerial decisions, how they line up, and if they play well, if they get the right 11 out there, I mean, France could win the World Cup, but France could also not advance out of their group if things go, ridiculously wrong. I don't see that happening in their group. I think Peru and Australia are way below France. I mean, Denmark is below France talent-wise, but Denmark has shown enough on the international stage that I think they make it out of the group. But, I mean, they could beat France. I mean, France, drew to Luxembourg in qualifying. So, that's one of those games where France is a minus who knows how much favorite. And, hey, if you took the draw at plus, probably it's something like plus 3,000 or whatever, you were fine. But you wouldn't have picked Luxembourg to beat France. That's why I think for these betting lines, I think you're looking for the value when it comes to the how far will they advance, or a golden boot, how many goals will be scored, how many points out of the group they will get, rather than betting a plus 1,600 Morocco to win Group B when. Hey, if there's a bet where if they advance, which means they could come in second, okay, because that's one upset. I mean, Morocco, if they could upset Portugal and come in second, but I don't think they beat Portugal and Spain. One of those things could happen. That's why, in soccer, as compared to a lot of other sports, the gap in talent is so drastic that upsets happen, but to bank on, the upset needs to happen 4 times in a row. I mean, you don't see that in the World Cup. That's why the past, 20 years, you take a look at who wins, and it's it's one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the tournament.
Well, you mentioned there could be decent value for draws, and some of these teams play. I just remember watching Switzerland over the years, and all they seem to do is just want to tie everybody. Are there other teams like that in the tournament that could have draw equity?
Oh yeah, there's tons. I mean, most of these games where the one team is a significant favorite versus the underdog is going to bunker. I mean, typically the strategy is to play 10 men behind the ball, hold on for dear life, hopefully get a set piece on a foul on a counterattack, and then score off of some center back header goal. You may get 2 or 3 opportunities, or you play long ball. You put in a fast, speedy striker up top, and you send long balls over the top. And maybe, 1 out of 11 of them, you could come down with a decent shot on goal. And then if your defense holds up, maybe you could nick a 1-0 win. A lot of it has to do with match flow also. A lot of times if the first goal is scored early, a floodgates open up because the defensive team has to open up more because they need to score to at least get a point out of the game. And then by opening up, you're just allowing a much more quality team to just break you apart from there. So you may see games where, Uruguay, Saudi Arabia, if Saudi Arabia could hold on for dear life, that game could be, you bet the under in that game and just hope it's 1-0. Or, I mean, I still wouldn't bet the draw in that game. But if Uruguay scores first in the 8th minute or something, that game could be 8-0. It could end up that bad. Or it could be, 0-0. So you're really looking for match flow. You're looking for, especially after the first game of these groups, to see how well these teams are playing together. Because these are national teams. They don't play together for most of the year. They're playing for their club teams. So the mix of people, although they play qualifying, they're playing these international friendlies. They're just testing things out. They have 23-man squads. Who knows who's going to start? Who knows what the rotation is going to be from game to game. So I think going into looking at what happens after the first games in these groups, it may be better for you to prepare and, make a wager after that, or, use it as a hedging opportunity.
Okay, so I was looking at the FIFA rankings. Are those legitimate whatsoever? Because it seems like some of these groups are stacked when you look at the rankings, but the odds don't necessarily dictate that.
The FIFA World Ranking is not necessarily. I mean, it. You could play like friendlies. They're like a lot of times, nations that play against each other a lot. Like you beat Spain 2-0 in a friendly. Like that may make you look good on paper, but you're not necessarily that great of a team. So a lot of it comes down to scheduling. And it's similar to what would you call like the BCS in college football. Like strength of schedule kind of matters. So you'll see teams that are ranked in the top 20 that I'll be like the difference between them and the top 5 ranked teams. Like you might as well be ranked 100th.
Yeah, well, it just even seems like something like Group B, where Spain is the 8th ranked team in FIFA and Portugal's the 4th. Now, I'm sure a lot of that has to do with like winning the Euro. You get so many points and it hasn't expired yet. But when you look at the actual odds, one of them is minus 200 to win the group, and the other one's 2-1 to win the group. So clearly, Spain is a significant favorite over Portugal.
Right. It's exactly as you stated. It's like these time frames on how it goes with the FIFA ranking. It's very probably similar to golf, where we have the Euro players, where Alex Noren is in the top 10 in the world, and then you look and you go, well, why would I play him over a Brooks Koepka or something like that, where a Stenson or sometimes in some of these tournaments you see Fowler is less than that. I mean, or Matsuyama, and you go, well, he's playing on the Euro Tour. You're gonna have 3 wins in the past year against Matthew Fitzpatrick. That's what's gonna happen.
All right, so of these favorites, who should I really be looking at? Seriously considering to put some cash down, especially if you're in Delaware, because you can do that now.
I think at the top end, I think that the clear favorites are Germany. Although they left Leroy Sané out of the squad, who had a great year at Manchester City, they're just too deep. I mean, they actually have a proper center forward. I mean, that last World Cup in the Euros, they had Mario Gomez, because Germany, when they play with like Thomas Müller as a number 9, he's not really a center forward that you like cross the ball to or anything. He's better when played like as a secondary striker, as like a kind of a 10 type of position. But Timo Werner, who plays for RB Leipzig, he's 22, and he's going to be a mainstay on the German squad for probably the next 2 or 3 World Cups, and much higher quality than Mario Gomez, who's on the wrong side of 30. So with them having a more talent-wise better number 9 center forward, and then you have Kroos and Ozil, and I mean they're one of those where their second 11 could beat half the teams in the tournament. So playing these games every 4 or 5 days, like they could rotate players in, and they no change of quality. I mean, Brazil, Dani Alves is out. They can have some issues as far as fullbacks concerned. Marcelo isn't necessarily the greatest defensive fullback. Offensively, they have no problem. I mean, Neymar is coming back from an injury, but their front 4, when they play, is as good as anyone else in the world. So they are a clear favorite. So just the German team's way too organized that if I had to pin one over the other, I'd go Germany. But any of these teams in probably the top 6 could beat each other on any given day, but I don't see, and also any of them could for some reason not, even qualify out of their group unless it's they could really, crap the bed. I don't guess it out of Brazil, probably not. Germany, probably not. France is a little in flux. Spain could disappoint. Argentina is all about Messi. If he doesn't play well, it's kind of very similar to the Cavaliers. I mean, I don't want to say that Angel Di Maria or Gonzalo Higuain or Dybala are equivalent to J.R. Smith, because they're not. But typically, if Messi's not having a good game, Argentina will draw instead of win against a team like Nigeria, something like that. So, if they fail to advance from their group, it would be a big disappointment for them, but it wouldn't be past, it wouldn't be ultra surprising. But still, for the most part, I'm more waiting for these round of 16 matchups. And then, to me, looking at the brackets once, that's why I said after the first game of the group, You'll have a much better understanding of where all these teams may line up in the bracket. And I think that's where the value would come in, going, who has the easier path to winning the World Cup, rather than, making a bet right now. And, if you're making a bet right now, you're taking one of the top probably 5 or 6 teams, and everything else is kind of throwing your money away.
Well, how much are these odds, do you think, going to be slashed once you get to the round of 16? Like, is Germany going to be like a even favorite? If, let's say, all the top 6 teams qualify for the second round and they get to the knockout stage, and Germany has a tough path, maybe they have to go through potentially Spain and Argentina on their way to the final, something like that. I don't even know if that's possible. Let's just say that's hypothetically the case. Would their odds be like 3-1 at that point instead of 4.5-1? Like, it seems really strange that, like, if all these teams are going to advance, let's say, that their odds could really get any shorter than this. Like, maybe 2-1 would be the favorite at that time, and like, that just seems strange.
Well, I don't think they'll get that much shorter, like a 2-1, because once you get down to the quarterfinals or the semifinals, like, any of these teams could beat one another. So, I mean, to me, you're getting a better price then, being that, they only have to beat 2 teams, 3 teams, and you could see the path that you could. The thing is that you may get an upset and a group winner coming out. If Denmark wins that group, then France is good enough that they're may end up playing Argentina, the group winner of Group D, in the quarterfinals. In the round of 16. So that matchup seems like a semifinal matchup, but one of them is going to be gone in the round of 16 because of the way the group stage panned out. So then you could look at the bracket and look at the other matchups and go, well, now that one of France and Argentina is going to be out in round of 16, like, who does that make easier for everyone else? So you may look at a Belgium and go, well, because these 2 teams, one of these 2 good teams are knocking out each other, and Belgium only has to go through, a Poland, and then a Poland, and then I don't know who they would play next. You'd go, okay, I'll take Belgium to win the World Cup at that point, because now you see what the brackets look like.
All right, that makes a lot more sense. I'm sure it would be factored into the odds of this situation playing itself out, but it probably wouldn't be drastic to the point where if this theoretical situation plays out with Belgium on one side, 2 good teams playing and just knocking each other out, they probably go from like 9-1 to 6-1 or something like that, which isn't all that significant if you're looking at the favorites for the World Cup. I want to talk about DraftKings strategy before we get into the groups. So if I'm going to play DraftKings soccer for the first time, what's just like a few things that I should know so I just am not completely out of my element and I'm not the biggest fish in the tournament?
Well, these are going to be 3-game slates. So, I mean, you're not going to have a ton of players to choose from. But for the most part, I mean, you have 8 roster spots. And forward, typically you get a lot of goal-dependent players. Like, for the most part, I mean, just like with any daily fantasy sport, you kind of the cash plays are the consistent floor players are the ones that you're kind of looking for, while the upside guys are the ones that score goals. But a lot of times these forwards, since they're not on the ball as much, since they're closer to goal, like, they'll either score a goal or they'll get no points, or they'll have like 1 shot for 1 point. And they play 90 minutes, and you're like, I only got 2 points out of them. So if they score, they're great. But the midfielders, the wide players who are more apt to be on the ball, get crosses, tackles, fouls drawn. Like, they don't. A lot of times you see that the top playmakers for these sides could, a goal's worth 12 points in total on DraftKings. That they could get 18 points without scoring a goal or an assist just in peripherals.
So for your floor players, you're looking more at midfielders who control the ball. Does that mean that if you're going to build, even, let's say you wanted to build from that way, even in terms of giant tournaments, could you take your safer floor players in the midfield and just kind of gamble on a cheaper forward who might score?
Well, that's a good GPP strategy. A lot of times with multiple positional eligibility, you get forwards that are either playing wide, like in a 4-3-3 system where you have 3 forwards. Like, you kind of want the wider players for DraftKings scoring because you can only cross from a wide position. So, and they're also more likely to run at players, so they'll get fouled more than probably other players. And as well as one of the main aspects of finding floor players is people that have a monopoly or at least a majority of set piece opportunities. That's a free kick. So like on a corner kick, or if a player's fouled and they can, take a 30-yard shot at goal with the wall in front of them. Typically, sides have players that are responsible, like they're preset. That, when we get these opportunities on the right side, this guy will kick the ball. And on the left side, this guy will kick the ball. Sometimes you have teams where, like Denmark, Christian Eriksen will be over every single dead ball. So any foul, any corner, anything, he's going to be the one that kicks it. Now, if he's kicking it, most likely it's going to be a cross. It's going to be a shot. It's going to be one of them. And especially in favored positions, those opportunities will happen, 10, 15, 20 plus times a game. So basically you're saying, I'd like to take all of Denmark's corners and free kicks. Then you take Christian Eriksen. Now on the opposite side for the underdogs, they may not even be in the position where they get that much of those type of opportunities. So while, seeing who takes set pieces for Saudi Arabia seems like it may be valuable, how many of them will they even be taking? Most likely they're going to be defending, and you don't really get many points for defense in DraftKings. So like we said before with the betting, the gap in talent between some of these sides is so vast that it's not like NBA DFS where both sides are going to score no matter what. The Grizzlies are probably going to score 70 points no matter who's on the court because they are going to get the ball and going to have to go down the court. But in some of these games for the World Cup, you're going to see teams with 70% possession. The other team's never going to have a shot at attacking. So you're kind of looking for the favored sides, set piece takers, wide players. And the last thing is don't worry so much about goalkeeper because you sometimes taking the really underdog goalkeeper, even if they give up 4 goals, they may have 10 saves with that and you get more and they're cheap. So sometimes it's better to even punt down a goalkeeper than pay up for a goalkeeper that's most likely to get the win and the clean sheet. And that's why there's a lot of variance at goalkeeper. And so my advice is always fill out the rest of your lineup and then plug in whatever money you got left, plug in a goalkeeper and you're fine.
So, I mean, it's a lot like when you look at something like football when you're picking your DST. And you could have the crappiest defense going, but they have a good pass rush, so you know that they're going to generate turnovers, and the other team's going to be passing against them the entire time. So even if they give up 30 points, they have the potential to get a bunch of sacks, a bunch of picks, and a potential touchdown, so you roll with that upside. So there's the potential for that at goalkeeper as well?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, the main thing in GPPs, since you're looking to optimize for your upside, I wouldn't play a goal scorer with the keeper.
Fair.
That's against him. Although sometimes sometimes that works in 3-game slates. You're not going to have much choice. I've won plenty of high-scoring GPPs playing Cristiano Ronaldo and the goalkeeper against him. And Ronaldo scores a hat trick, but the goalkeeper still gets 7 saves in the process. So it's the best of both worlds. It's not suggested, but for the most part, you're looking for the players that are more consistent. Like if you took goals and assists out of the question, like who's more likely to get points in that type of situation? Because goals can come from anywhere. So you may have an own goal that doesn't get credited to anyone. A substitute could come in, and there's only 3 substitutes in soccer. So you're also looking for players that are going to once they're out of the game, they're out of the game. It's like baseball. Like then they don't get any at bats. So think in terms of at bats for baseball or minutes for NBA or targets for wide receivers. Like those set piece takers are kind of like the Adam Thielens of may not get at red zone targets. I mean, he'll get his 8 catches for 80 yards, but the Ted Ginn Jr.'s getting the 150 yards, Tyreek Hill's. Those are forwards. Those are more GPP plays.
Okay, so is there any merit, and this could be a completely moronic question, that some of the teams are going to bring in some of their strikers later in the game when everyone's all gassed out and they're fresh, and they might only get 20 minutes, but they're going to be the only fresh legs on? Like, is that something to look at? And let's say we you're talking about even using team totals and look at the odds that dictate how the game flow is going to work a lot of times. If you have a close game where, let's say, one of the teams is like a 1.5 favorite, something like that, would it be worth taking one of these fresh strikers from the underdog team knowing that they're going to come in and they're just going balls to the wall trying to score the entire time?
Pat, if you're playing me head to head, you could do it. That's perfectly fine.
Okay, so idiotic is what you're saying.
It's a very rare situation. I mean, like we've seen before in international qualifying matches that Messi has a knock and he comes on in the 60 minutes and he scored a hat trick. That doesn't mean you pay 11-8 for a substitute. So maybe in showdown formats, I mean, we saw in the Champions League that Gareth Bale was 4% owned and he was a substitute, came in, scored 2 goals, but he needed to score 2 in order for you to win the GPP. So we kind of knew that he was going to come on at some point, but that's a showdown format. When you have 3 games, for the most part, you are correct as far as match flow is concerned. Like, think in terms of looking. All you have to really do is look at the lines. If you don't know the players that well, if you don't know the teams that well, just look at the lines. If you see, minus 800 favorite, it's like, okay, think in terms of who's the playmaker, who's going to take set pieces, who's their center forward. You could also look at goal scoring odds. It's called anytime goal scoring odds for each individual game. And you're looking for, when you're laying odds, which means it's, more than a 50% chance of a guy scoring, you may see, Portugal and Cristiano Ronaldo with a 72% chance of scoring. He may not do other things peripherally, but if his odds to score are that high, he may still be a cash play because just by, you could just average it out expected value wise that, hey, he's 8 points to score 1 goal. Like, it's going to happen 70% of the time. So you could do that. But for the most part, you're looking for wide players. You're looking for players that are more active on the ball for the favored sides, and maybe cheap fullbacks if you want to punt on the underdog sides, because a lot of times the underdog sides, the fullbacks, which are the wider defensive positions, if they're going to go down, like if team's down 2-0 and there's 30 minutes left, 40 minutes, I mean, it could be at the half, they're going to have to push forward more. And the lesser quality sides typically have to go towards a more simpler attacking system, which involves just crossing the ball a lot, just sending the ball. You see this a lot at the end of soccer games. Last 10 minutes, a team needs to get a goal. Their players push forward, and the wide players just send the ball into the box with crosses, and hopefully someone gets a foot or a head on the ball. But for DraftKings scoring, that's great. You want those wide players that are behind that are going to put those in, especially for underdog sides that may have wide players that are fairly cheap, that you could go, okay, I'm going to take one of these guys so I could pay up for the favored playmakers everywhere else.
So where am I getting my info from for this? So how long before match time are the starting lineups released?
That's 1 hour before kickoff. So for these matches, these are all split slates. So I mean, if on a 3-game slate, you can have a match at 8 a.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Eastern. You're not going to get the starting 11 until an hour before. They're 23-man squads, so you can't guarantee who's going to be. If you lock hits at 8 a.m., you have to plan for who do I think is going to play at 2 and be able to pivot from there. That's why using your utility slot as the latest time player is going to matter much. Now, you could predict probably based on these international friendlies and the qualifying who's going to play. You don't have to. Messi's going to start for Argentina. Don't worry about it. You're not going to have to need a pivot for that. You'd hear about him being injured way before lock time for whatever reason. So some of these players are kind of the main players are pretty much guaranteed, but it's more of looking out for the cheap fullback. The mid. What happens a lot is that since for especially for cash games that you're looking for who's going to take set pieces, who's going to have a majority. And sometimes for these national teams, there are 2 or 3 players that at times. And one of the international friendlies, one guy took 8 corners and this guy took 2 free kicks. But in the next one, because one player was out and the other player was in because they're rotating the squad to see, how they mesh together. Now it's the opposite. So kind of looking at the starting 11 going who's going to take set pieces? And sometimes what ends up happening is that all the players that normally take set pieces are all in the lineup. So now you're looking at going, I don't know what's going to happen. It could be this guy that takes all of them. It could be split out. So sometimes the risk reward you have to weigh in there of do I take a chance on one of these three players, or do I go to another team that like kind of has a distinct looking at their starting 11 and you go, I know I'd rather take the sure thing here than take a chance on one of the three players from another favored side. And the same thing for any other position. Sometimes you'll see, them lining up, since you're looking more for wider players for DraftKings scoring, that they'll be playing with three center backs and then two wing backs. So instead of fullbacks and a 4-man back line, they're playing with the 3-man back line and then like 5 midfielders. And the 2 wide players are most likely going to be defender eligible on DraftKings. And since they're more attacking, they're more forward, they're more likely to accumulate points. So you'd kind of be looking for those types of players based on the formation when the lineups come out an hour before.
So since you're going to get a lot of people like me and people who just know nothing about soccer playing in these contests because, it's the World Cup. I want some action here. I want some DraftKings lineups. I'll probably end up setting my lineups like the night before so I don't have to wake up at 7 a.m. And I don't think that's going to be just me who ends up doing that. I can see a lot of people doing it. Do you think that there's a lot of merit to just being there right? Like, do you think it's more important to be there 15, 20 minutes right before lock during the World Cup than it would be on your average like Premiership week?
No, it's the same. It's for any soccer slate. I mean, because there's only 3 substitutes and, you need to be on the field in order to score any points. And the substitutes aren't guaranteed to come into the game. Depending on the match flow, I mean, the team's up 4-0. Like that backup striker that you have, you're not going to get any points from. So, I mean, the main skill, and I've always said on many of the RotoWire podcasts that you could pretty much from beforehand kind of pick out who the best plays are for the most part. It's just that when slight things change, the skill is that hour before lock, especially in Premier League where you may have 6 games start at the same time. So you're getting you're getting 12 lineups at once. And then you go, okay, who's playing here? Who's playing there? Is this guy, if you're able to find a $2,500 fullback, now that changes your entire lineup construction. So like waking up at 7 a.m. for the first game's starting 11, although it may not contain many or any surprises, possibly, maybe slight differences, you're gonna have you're gonna deal with people like me in the soccer lobby that are gonna be up at 7 a.m. So if that cheap fullback is in, if that value play is in, I mean, you're gonna see all the sharp players with it, and you're gonna wonder how come I didn't get 12 points from a $3,600 play.
All right, so besides DK Live, besides DK Playbook and RotoWire, where are the best spots to get this information and the analysis that I need right away? Because they can release the lineup to me. I don't know who these players are, so it's not really doing too much for me. I need someone to break it down. Where am I getting that analysis from?
Well, obviously RotoWire. I mean, if you go there, I mean, I gotta. I mean, I'm not an employee of RotoWire. I contribute. You'll have RotoWire will have all the official stats, all the DraftKings categories, all of everything. I mean, you'll find the main stats on the official World Cup site. I mean, you'll find everything there. Like when starting 11s come out, this is the World Cup. You don't have to search around for information. It'll be all over Twitter. You could follow any of the official channels for anything like that. There are apps. You could use SofaScore. And I mean, it's going to ESPN will have it. You don't have to worry about it. We deal in soccer sometimes with, these qualifying where it's like Bolivia versus Guatemala. And you have to look at, you have to find on Twitter some Colombian kid that's at the stadium to figure out, which Gutierrez is in. So it's the World Cup, Pat. You don't have to necessarily worry about, stretching that far to find the information. But I mean, typically, I mean, you could read the Guardian reviews. That they do great previews. Who Scored has a lot of stats. If you want to know the stats from their like domestic leagues, you could find, even in really the Ukrainian first division, you typically could find at least basic stats there. But obviously RotoWire, I would say we're gonna have a preview of every game, every slate, a daily podcast. So which is free to subscribe to. So we'll break that down every 3-game slate. But I mean, go DraftKings playbook that they're already coming out with previews. I mean, there'll be a wealth of knowledge to at least know who the main guys are on each team, because typically the main guys are the ones that you're going to be rostering. It's those value punt plays that you're kind of looking out for that you're probably not. You could kind of highlight. Go, if this guy's in, make sure to, he's too cheap to play. It's similar to anything else when it comes to like NBA or NFL, where the top receiver's out and the pricing doesn't reflect that. So knowing that, it's like, if I don't see one of these guys in, that take a look at another midfielder that may be playing in a more advanced position. It's kind of hard to say without looking at the starting 11s that come out, because we can predict what we want, but once they come out, then you kind of have to make the analysis there.
Fair enough. So people can follow you on Twitter at BlenderHD. My guy Galen Dravgev is from Daily Roto. I was going to give my guys at Daily Roto a big shout out. Are there DFS DraftKings specific guys out there beyond you two that I can follow to keep up to date with this stuff? There's recommendations from you. Maybe buddies in the industry, guys you respect, guys like that.
Oh, there's plenty. Andrew Laird at RotoWire. I mean, he's the RotoWire guy. I'm the whatever. I yell and curse and complain about, I go too conservative. I'm like, I'm going to play Tom Carroll because he has set pieces, and he has one set piece and he gives me 2 points, and then I complain about it. But RotoWire Andrew on Twitter. Other guys to follow during the World Cup. Luis Pacheco, who's a free agent now. I don't know where he's writing. I don't think he's writing anywhere, but he's a good follow. Pacheco. I don't even want. Look him up, Luis Pacheco, and look for him for soccer. It's Pacheco 2010. If you want to follow him on Twitter. PSU fans too. Sean Newsham, who is writing soccer articles for the Action Network. These are all regular, daily fantasy players in the lobby. The soccer lobby in DraftKings is not that big for the most part. So we kind of all know each other, and most of us block each other in head-to-heads. So typically it's us trolling each other on Twitter, trying to goad each other not to block each other on Twitter. But Big O _1, I know that he's doing some World Cup analysis. I mean, if you follow, there's not many people to follow. So if you follow any of us, we're probably retweeting or at least talking about soccer. In Daily Roto is fine. Like, it's a very small community. It's kind of not hard to find us if you're playing soccer.
Last guy I give the shout out to, Albert Vartanian, my pal, host of the Full 90 podcast. You follow him at The Real Albert TV on Twitter. Might even have him in studio as we get closer to the knockout stage, but he's away right now. He's in England, so we'll see how he's doing. All right, let's get into the groups very quickly because I do want to go over this. Group A is the Russia group, but it's Uruguay, Russia, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. Uruguay, the favorite at -125. Russia +162. Egypt 5-1. Saudi Arabia 40-1. Let's just cross them off right away. In terms of Egypt, I mentioned this to you before. I don't know all the players' names, but I saw the Egyptian guy get taken down in the Champions League final. If he was fully healthy, would they have better odds than this?
I would assume so. I mean, I don't think the lines moved that much. I mean, I think the opening line may have been like +450 or something. So, I mean, I don't think it's dramatically different. I mean, the Egyptian team without Salah is going to play extremely defensively. And they're actually pretty good defensively. So I think the main reason why the Egypt line is still similar is because that's how bad the Russian team really is. Like to me, that's the weird group of really Egypt and Russia, I think, are more closer to each other than the odds suggest. But Russia is hosting. So it's very rare for the host country not to move past the group stage. So, I mean, if you're looking just as far as on-field talent is concerned, if Salah's playing, I mean, Egypt could beat Russia, no problem. Without him, they're going to have to play much more defensively, which it makes their chances of advancing out of the group much harder. I mean, they would have to obviously get 3 points against Saudi Arabia, which probably shouldn't be a problem. But you never know. So I mean, a lot of the game, if you're going to go on a game by game basis, The more interesting games to me, I mean, maybe I'm more of a soccer masochist, are when the two worst teams in the group play each other. Right. So I'm looking at because those a lot of times those are the keys when the two best and the two worst play against each other. So like who wins this Uruguay-Russia game and who wins the Egypt-Saudi Arabia game? Because that'll really determine on who's going to win this group.
Well, you can. You were mentioning before you can either bet teams to just make it through the group stage or not qualify for the group stage as well. We assume Uruguay comes out of here. Russia's by the odds the second favorite. But if you bet, let's say you think that Egypt moves on along with Uruguay, you could bet them plus 162 to advance, or you could bet Russia plus 225 to not advance because there's no way Saudi Arabia is advancing, right?
Right.
So
right. Those are the bets. To me, those are the bets that I'm looking for. I mean, even if you want to put together some 2 or 3 bet parlays that correlate with one another, I mean, to me that's where kind of the value is, rather than I don't see, as I've said before, like you're not going to put down $10 on any of these World Cup bets and come home with 50,000. Like that just doesn't happen. You can put together your 14-team parlay if you want to do that and see if that ever happens. But yeah, you're right as far as like I'm more willing to bet that Egypt advances rather than bet them to win the group. Although I guess you could use kind of a two-way and put a small amount on them to win and then a bigger amount on them to just advance. So it's kind of like the win place in horse racing.
All right, so who are the guys in this group I should be like watching for? Like when I tune into the games, like, oh, these are the guys. These are guys I need to be paying attention to.
Uruguay, it's going to be their 2 forwards. Luis Suarez from Barcelona and Edison Cavani from PSG. That obviously the class outside of Mohamed Salah of this group. The Uruguayan defense, they're always stout from South America. So, these totals may not be all that high in these Uruguay matches in comparison to what they could be. Because like if you took a France or an Argentina or something and you put them against Saudi Arabia, I mean, that total could be 6. I think the Uruguay-Saudi Arabia may be like 4 or 4.5. And that's immensely high for soccer totals in and of itself, but it's more the fact that Uruguay is more likely to not concede than to score 4. So like the bets that you're looking at for those are like clean sheet odds. Like you could bet, I'm assuming, on how many points and how many goals that either one team will score or one team will give up. So to me, like if Uruguay wins this group, it's possibly that they win this group giving up 0 goals. So going by like goal difference, maybe you want to do like a plus or minus 6 in goal difference type of bet. I'm assuming there's a ton of these types of prop bets that you can make. But I mean, to me, that's what I'm looking for. So Uruguay, stout defense, not the greatest of midfields, 2 top forwards. Russia Kokorin is injured. He's missing the World Cup. He's probably their best scorer. They have a lot of old players that are on the wrong side of 30. Their goalkeeper is known for making really poor mistakes. Egypt is going to play defensively without Salah, so I don't see many goals in their game. Saudi Arabia is a joke. So, I mean, to me, Group A is kind of the fun group with Russia in there. Group H may be the most competitive group, but in Group A, I'm pretty much looking at either low-scoring games and basically the top players scoring. So you're looking at Cavani, Suarez, and Salah if he plays.
All right, Group B, we got Spain, Portugal, Morocco, and Iran. I already mentioned minus 200 for Spain to win this group, 2-1 for Portugal. Morocco's 14-1. Iran is 33-1. I mean, even though the FIFA rankings aren't the greatest indicator here, Spain and Portugal both inside the top 10. Iran and Morocco both outside the top 30. You mentioned Morocco. There's the potential that maybe they could upset Portugal. Probably very unlikely here. Is this one of the most solid 1-2 of any of the groups that Spain and Portugal are coming out of here?
Not necessarily. I don't think Portugal is that great. I think it really depends on their system. If they actually play what they should be playing, which is a 4-3-3, having Ronaldo play wide, having Silva play in the middle, and having Bernardo Silva play on the other side, I think they advance. I think that I agree with you, but I don't put it past them. In the Euros, they were playing this 4-4-2 system and basically just playing good defense and not really going at all out attack. And Ronaldo, I mean, at 33 years old, I mean, he's not the same player that he was 4 years ago. So I don't look at Portugal, and I'm not as scared of them when Iran has a decent enough defense. Morocco has a decent defense. They have a young playmaker, Hakim Ziyech, who plays for Ajax in the Netherlands, who's one to watch out for. I could see Portugal-Morocco being a draw. I mean, I could see Morocco beating Iran, and then if Portugal, may not get any points out of Spain, they could be outside looking in. I mean, the same you could say for Spain, that they have a lot of midfield talent to put in, but is Diego Costa really the answer to lead the line for them? Or they're left, not scoring enough, or having to put Iago Aspas in, who doesn't have experience on the World Cup stage. Yes, the mathematical favorites are going to be Spain and Portugal, but I don't put Morocco in the same category as Saudi Arabia, and even Iran. Like, I think Iran is twice as good as Saudi Arabia, even though plus 3,300 to advance out of the group is like not that far off from plus 4,000 for Saudi Arabia.
Okay, so like there is the potential, like you mentioned, Morocco could draw with Portugal, maybe stage an upset. Would you put Iran into that category too? Because maybe there's some action I want right there. Portugal, Iran, draw.
I mean, you get good odds for it. I mean, I think Morocco is a better team than Iran, but one of these teams could pull out a draw. These are not. This isn't Saudi Arabia, so I think Spain has way too much quality in the midfield for Iran to be able to muster anything out of. Morocco would have to hold on for dear life, I guess, and hope for a 0-0. But against Portugal, I mean, if you shut down, if Ronaldo's greedy and he's ball, he hogs the ball, and you shut him down, or he doesn't get the dive call in the box for his penalty, Portugal didn't score that many goals in the Euros. They won, but they didn't really do it with style at all. So, I mean, yeah, if you want to take a long shot, bet, when the game comes up, Morocco or Iran to draw against Portugal, maybe to win, that may be a little too far. I think Portugal's still better enough side that they're not going to drop all 3 points.
Well, I mean, how far ahead of Portugal would you put Spain? Like, are the odds accurate? One should be minus 200, the other one should be 2-1. There's that big of a gap between the two?
If anything, maybe it should be bigger.
Okay, so if you look at the not to qualify for the second round, so instead of betting Morocco or Iran to win the group or even to qualify, you could basically say to qualify, you get 4-1 on Morocco, 550 on Iran, but you can bet Portugal not to qualify for plus 333, which basically gives you both of those teams, because one of them would have to qualify. And evidently, I guess Portugal will be the one on the outside looking in if we think that Spain's going through, right?
Right. No, that makes sense. I think maybe what would the odds be for that you have down for Morocco to advance?
Morocco to advance is 4-1.
Okay, so I mean that's better than is that better than plus 333?
It is, but you technically would get Iran in that other bet too at plus 333.
Yeah, but I'd rather take Morocco than take either sides.
Getting greedy with those extra 70 cents. I like it. Let's go to Group C. We have France, Denmark, Peru, and Australia. Per the FIFA ranks, Denmark and Peru are actually quite highly rated. I mean, I don't know why. I'm sure you can figure that part out. But Denmark seems, the odds for Denmark to win this group are almost twice what they are for Peru. Obviously, France is the heavy favorite at minus 350. Denmark is plus 450. Peru's 8-1. Australia 22-1. Let's not worry about them. Denmark and Peru, is there really that much of a separation that Denmark has twice as good of odds to win this group than Peru would?
Yeah, it should be higher. It should be higher.
Like Denmark's Denmark's that much better?
Yeah, Denmark's that much better. I mean, Denmark, but the gap between France and Denmark is as much of the gap between Denmark and Peru. Like Peru, like when's the last time they made a World Cup? That they don't. I mean, they came out of qualifying. They had to, get through the second qualifying round. their best players, Guerrero and Farfan, are 30 plus years old. They have some young players there. I mean, Christian Cueva's there, and I mean they have a lot of Peruvian domestic players that, or like Yotan who plays in MLS. Like I'm talking about players that play in Peru, in the United States, in Russia, and Denmark has Christian Eriksen who plays for Tottenham in the Premier League, Pion Sisto who plays for Celta Vigo in La Liga. Like just the quality of leagues that the players play in for the Denmark team are much higher than the Peruvian team. I mean, Peru was an underdog to qualify out of South America, out of CONMEBOL. So I see Denmark beating Peru and Australia, and they have a small shot of beating France, depending on if France could get their act together on what 11 players they want to play together.
Well, is France still the team most likely to stage a walkout halfway through the tournament?
What do you mean by a walkout?
Well, was it not the last World Cup? Maybe the World Cup before it. They all quit on the manager.
I don't think that was France. I typically that happens with the small African sides because they're promised money and then they don't get paid from their federation. This is the Putin match fixing side of soccer. I don't know if you want to go down that road.
I would like to try to exploit it if I could.
I don't think anyone walks out on a World Cup, so I don't think you have to, especially not one of the favorites. If anything, it's going to be the Panamanians, or it's going to be one of the where the last game doesn't even matter, where they're not going to advance, and then the last. I'm not saying anything would happen because it's still a World Cup, but if anything, it's going to be a walkout because of that reason. If you even want to put it down, I didn't even consider that as part of the odds. You're more better at handicapping this than me. I didn't even factor that into my model.
All right, so I need to know, because I always get confused with this. If we're talking about the best leagues in the world where most of the skill rests, is it a distinct 1, 2, 3? Is it like a tier of 3 leagues that are what's the difference really in terms of talent between right now the Premiership and the Spanish League?
Not much. Some people consider La Liga to actually, from an overall perspective, be a better league.
All right. What about the Bundesliga then? Is that the next one down, or is it the Italian league?
No, that top 5 leagues. I mean, good enough. I mean, it also depends on what side you're playing for. So I mean, the rotation players, the reserves for Real Madrid, may be better than mid-table sides in the Premier League, because they're just a big club and they're going to play European football, so they're going to have a big enough roster. But I mean, you're looking at England, you're looking at Italy, Spain, Germany. I mean, the top 1 or 2 teams in Portugal. I mean, a lot of times it's if you play for the top team, like if you play for Olympiacos in Greece, you're probably a pretty decent player, a decent enough player. That, but if you're playing for a mid-table side in Greece, then no, you might as well be playing in the 3rd division in England.
All right.
So it's it really depends on the teams that you play for. So if they play for Galatasaray or Besiktas in Turkey or something like that, okay, you see quality players out of them. Probably not at the same level as a Manchester City or Real Madrid or Liverpool, but at least good enough. But it's much different than when you're saying that you play for Leganes in La Liga, one of the lower sides. That's still better than playing in the Saudi domestic league.
Okay, so if we're going to say, would those 4 be the 4 European leagues that have the most depth from top to bottom? Spanish League, Italian League, German League, and English League?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you could throw in the Eredivisie, the Dutch league, a little for the top, but maybe the top half of sides there.
Okay, so then when you're looking at the Turkish League, the Greek League, the Portuguese League, whatever, where does the MLS stack up to them? Are they far closer to the second tier of leagues? Below those tier of leagues? Are they better than Mexican leagues? Where's the MLS stack up here? 6th, 7th?
Probably not in the top 10.
Okay.
Sorry.
So
but
what's better, the Russian league or the MLS?
The top of the Russian league is better than any of the MLS.
Okay.
But the mid-table of the Russian league is probably on par. So that's really, in a lot of, because our system, not to get into any type of long-winded conversation about the way that our soccer system is set up, we have a very socialist way that we run our sports league. Soccer in the rest of the world is run under almost nearly cutthroat capitalism. So you'll have, the top team in these small countries, like Shakhtar Donetsk in Ukraine, like they're going to win and get into the Champions League like every year because they have like 50 times the amount of money as everyone else in the league. So it's like, if you play for them, like that's the equivalent of playing in a decently good league because you're going to at least play European football in the Champions League or the Europa League. But if you said that I play for the 8th place team in Ukraine, it's like you might as well play for the last place team in MLS at that point.
Okay, so basically the MLS is just terrible quality league in terms of talent.
It's not terrible, but it's nowhere near the top 4 or 5 leagues in the world.
Yeah, like you said, outside the top 10.
Somewhere around there.
So worse than the Dutch league?
Yes.
Worse than the Turkish league?
Well, it's worse than the top 2 or 3 teams in the Turkish league.
All right. I didn't want to get too big into that. I just wanted you to admit the MLS sucks. That's all I really want to hear.
I'm with you there. My club is a second division United States side, so I root for the USL teams.
Oh, that's real soccer hipster right there. Second tier American teams. Okay, Group D, the Argentina group. We got them at minus 162 favorite to win. Croatia plus 225. Nigeria is 10-1. Iceland is 12-1 to advance out of this group. Obviously, remember Iceland from the Euro. They made that run. Everyone in the country watched all the games, doing the crazy Viking stuff. Is their run over? Are people just going to be enamored with Iceland because they remember them from the Euro run, that people will want to bet them, but it just turns out that they're not very good?
That's exactly what I was going to suggest. I think actually wait closer to the world till the start of the World Cup, then bet against them to advance out of the group. Now I'm rooting for Iceland. They're the great story. 300,000 people in the country, and they went far in the Euros. They play very organized, defensive. I mean, they execute extremely well, but that can only take you so far against a team like Argentina that just has too much quality. Croatia, they're way too much technical talent. Even Nigeria, just from a physical talent perspective. Iceland could advance out of this group, but I mean, I look at it plus 1,200 and go, really, this should be like plus 2,000. I think the lines reflect a lot of people wanting to see them win and betting on their side when all logic and math would tell you that it's a much longer shot than what it looks like.
All right, so you can bet them minus 400 to not qualify for the round. That sounds like something to throw into a parlay if you want to make one of these giant parlays, right?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I think as you get closer, the lines will get better because more people will bet on Iceland.
Okay, who is the one? Is Egypt the African team that we should be looking at to potentially just upset someone and go through? Like, if one of the African teams ends up going to the knockout stage, which one do you think it's going to be?
It could be Nigeria. I don't put it past Nigeria. They have a very young team. I know, John Obi Mikel. I mean, he's the captain. He's older, but I mean, they have a lot of young attacking talent. Iheanacho from Leicester City. They have Ahmed Musa still on the side. Alexi Iwobi from Arsenal. I mean, Moses will be. I mean, they have some quality players. Wilfred Ndidi, who's a great defensive midfielder, 21. He's picked up a knock. I think he's going to be needed for their side, at least from a defensive purpose. But they have the physical talent individually to upset any. I mean, to beat Argentina. The problem is as far as organizational wide, system wide, can they play well enough as a team to do that? So I wouldn't put Nigeria past anyone in this group to knock off Croatia, to beat Iceland. That I'm not saying that they would win the group, but to advance. The only reason I would, Egypt, if Salah is healthy for all the games, I'd put above Nigeria. But if Salah weren't to play at all for Egypt, I'd put them about the same, especially as we talked before with Russia being in that group. Like, I don't know if the calls go their way in that group. While Nigeria, there'd be nothing against them other than people, rooting against them against Iceland because they want the underdog story. But Nigeria would be as much of an underdog story as Iceland also.
Okay, so Group E is the Brazil group. They're minus 400 to win it, and it seems like this is one of the few. This is the first group we've seen so far where the next three teams. I mean, Costa Rica is 16 to 1 to win the group, but just when you look at Switzerland plus 550, Serbia plus 700, it seems like Switzerland and Serbia are, at least by the betting odds, two very close teams, and Costa Rica's not outrageously worse than could Costa Rica advance here?
No. Not a chance.
Not a chance. Not a chance to beat Serbia or Switzerland.
No, Costa Rica. The quality of their side. Most of their best players are on the wrong side of 30. Their best player is their goalkeeper.
So you're saying they have great veteran experience? You got to swing it the other way.
That kind of doesn't work in soccer as much when you got to run 5 miles for 90 minutes. Costa Rica is going to play very defensively. Keylor Navas from Real Madrid is their goalkeeper. That there's just they have no upcoming talent on the Costa Rican squad has not really changed since 4 years ago. Since 8, I mean, there's no one in the pipeline there, and the teams above them are markedly better. They may hold on for dear life in some games. Maybe they get a point out of a Switzerland or a Serbia. Maybe they get a point, but it's not going to be because they score goals. It's going to be, I look at the Costa Rica games and go, how quickly can I get the under in this game?
All right, well, Switzerland and Serbia, and I guess this was the main reason that I wanted to bring up the FIFA ranks to begin with, because Switzerland's ranked 6th in the world, and Serbia's ranked 35th in the world, yet they seem to be very close in odds to win this group.
Yeah, well, from an individual talent perspective, Serbia probably has better talent on the field than Switzerland does overall. I mean, Serbia, you got Kolarov, you got a lot of players with Premier League, top league experience there. And when it comes to Switzerland, it's pretty much, their top player is Jordan Shaqiri, who played for a side that got relegated this year in Stoke City. A lot of Switzerland's side, they haven't really improved much since the Euros. It's pretty much the same roster. You got Lichtsteiner, Rodriguez as their fullbacks, Zemali in the 10 role, Shaqiri there. Really, their forwards, Seferovic is not that much of a threat. Serbia, as I think, from an individual talent perspective, has a better side. But like I said before, Switzerland's a very organized. I mean, Switzerland, isn't going to beat you 4-0. It's going to be, a 1-0 game where they have very organized defense. And Serbia is more likely to beat Costa Rica 3-0 than Switzerland is to beat Costa Rica 3-0. But Switzerland could lock down enough against Brazil that maybe they don't give up enough goals that they advance due to a goal differential rather than Serbia.
Group F is the Germany group. Mexico's in there, they're 5-1. Sweden's in there, they're 6-1. South Korea is 14-1. Germany, almost a 3-1 favorite here, minus 275. So between Mexico and Sweden, which one would you expect to come out of here?
Most probably Mexico. Sweden, they're going to be playing, without Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He's now retired from international football. So their side looks pretty much the same from the Euros. You have Emil Forsberg, their main playmaker, Mark Berg up top. You'll have Olsen and Lustig and Augustinsson, who may be a daily fantasy darling as a fullback. But the quality, you're going to need to score goals. You're not. Sweden's going to play defensively, obviously, against Germany. Mexico plays with much more flair. I don't see South Korea getting much out of this World Cup. I think South Korea could possibly draw against Sweden. I think Mexico has too much talent for South Korea. But at the end of the day, I think the Germans just basically spank everyone in this group because I think they're the favorites to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they have the talent on their side to show. I mean, the Mexican team, like you said before, with MLS sucks. Mexico has a couple of players from the MLS on them, so they can't be good.
Well, here's the thing that I find really intriguing here. Mexico's 66-1 to win the World Cup. When you look at Sweden, they're 150-1 to win the World Cup. So that's a huge discrepancy in terms of odds. Not that either one's going to win, but they're giving Mexico a far more likely chance, an over 2-1 chance versus Sweden that they're going to win the World Cup. Yet, when you look at their actual group odds here, to qualify for the knockout round, Germany's minus 1,200. They're probably going to win this group. Just run away with it. But between the two, Mexico is only plus 110 to move on, and Sweden is plus 125 to move on. Why do you think these odds are so close between these two teams? Yet when you look at the overall and look at who's going to win, why is Mexico so much higher?
Because in the group stage, you have 3 games. You're guaranteed 3 games, and you get an unexpected win. You could go through the group. When the defensive, that's why I like taking a team like Iceland to win the World Cup. It's like their strategy can work for one game. Like you could, these long shots, South Korea could advance. Their strategy it's possible that South Korea eke out a draw against Mexico and beat Sweden. But to win the World Cup, the odds to win the World Cup, you're going to have to do that 5 times. And these teams are just not talented enough that's why with Sweden, like Sweden would have to win like that 5 times to win the World Cup. Mexico could score goals. Mexico ain't that bad of a team offensively where, yeah, Mexico in that Mexico-Germany game, if you told me that the Germans won 3-2, I'd be like, okay. I mean, Germany still won, but Mexico had scored 2. You told me that Sweden scored 2 goals against Germany, I'd be shocked, right? Maybe they get 1. It's just, but to advance from the group, all Sweden has to do is beat South Korea and draw against Mexico. And they could do that 0-0 and 1-0 as Sweden. Mexico, if they make the round of 16, like Mexico could score goals against any of the teams, France, Spain. I mean, Mexico score. I mean, they may concede more, but you would see their possibility of the odds of winning the World Cup, which is still ridiculously remote, more so than the side that looks like they're very close in comparison to just get out of their group.
All right, well, the only reason I bring this up is because when you look at those odds to advance, and they're very, very close, the actual game line for that one game is Mexico's plus 140 to win, and Sweden is plus 220 to win. You would think that the winner of that game, unless it goes to a draw, then it goes to goal differential, would be the one to advance, right?
I would expect in this group, especially with Germany being the overwhelming favorite.
So if you think that whoever you think wins this game, the bet would just be to bet them to win that game and not even touch the other odds.
Yeah, I mean, that probably would be a safer bet, right?
Yeah. Okay. Trying to work it out because I want to get some action on this. I got to try to figure out where the soft spots are.
I'm sorry that soccer's such a big disparity between teams where your best action, like to me, it's boring, but I'm a very boring daily fantasy player. Anyway.
Yeah, like where's golf at? Where's my 250-1 long shot that could win?
Right, soccer isn't that to me. That's why you do the prop, as far as golden boot, the player individual props, that you could get decent value on, or you could put down a $5 bet that could pay out $500. It's just that, to me, it's you pick one. If you want to do the most optimal thing, it would be take $500 and put it on Brazil. And it's okay, that would be a better bet than putting $5 on Saudi Arabia because that's flushing the money down the toilet.
All right,
but the thing, Pat, is with the props is that anything that you think in terms of the group stage, as well as who do you think is going to win, a golden boot prop, which is basically the player that's going to score the most goals in the World Cup. Obviously, the more games that they play, the more chances that they're gonna have the golden boot. So if you think France is going to go far, right? If you think they're going to advance out of the group and win the World Cup, put $5 down on Olivier Giroud or Antoine Griezmann to win the golden boot, because if they play all those extra games, the extra games, you're more likely to hit that. And those odds will go down as they advance because, obviously you're going to see if anyone scores a hat trick in the first game, their odds of winning the golden boot are going to be obviously extremely, extremely good.
Well, would it be worth looking into seeing which of the really highly ranked teams in terms of betting odds or the favorites of the tournament are actually in the groups with like the really terrible teams, and they might beat them like 11-0, so you just take the best goal scorer on those teams, and hopefully the 3 they could potentially score in that game can carry them through?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. You could look at Uruguay and go, I'm going to take Suarez or Cavani, as most goals in the group or golden boot or whatever, or those types of things. It's the same for we have the Group B with Spain. Like, if they're going to play Diego Costa up top as a lone forward, like the odds for him for the golden boot, I think they may be at like 70-1 or something like that. And if Spain goes far and they're playing with one striker up top, I wouldn't put it past, Costa to have, 7-8 goals and win the golden boot if you think Spain win the World Cup or at least advance to the World Cup final. But then you look at Brazil and you go, well, you could put it on, Neymar. You can have much lower odds. Same for Messi. But if you think, for instance, that for whatever reason, let's say Denmark, you think is going to win the group, and France falters and comes in second, but now France and Argentina have to play one another and that type of thing. Well, now, if you think France knocks off Argentina, well, then I wouldn't put a golden boot bet down on Messi, or vice versa with the French forward.
Well, this kind of works into this next group, Group G, with Belgium and England going up against Tunisia and Panama. And by all accounts, Tunisia and Panama seem to be, Panama has to be one of the worst teams in the tournament. They're 1,000-1 to win the World Cup. And Tunisia's 750. Like, they have the third lowest odds to actually win. Maybe it's because they're in a stronger group. I don't know, but could you see someone on Belgium just piling up goals on Tunisia and Panama?
You could. The problem is that they have 4 players, 3 or 4 players that could score all those goals. Lukaku up top, and Hazard on one wing, Dries Mertens. Kevin De Bruyne is more of a play. He's more likely to get the assists, but goals. Yeah, I could see Belgium putting up. They could put up 4 or 5 goals against both Tunisia and Panama. But like I said, with the odds for them to win the World Cup, Belgium has shown in the past several years in tournaments that if they don't play well together as a team, like, they do underperform. So you do have some risk there. In this group, I think this is the easiest group to predict. I think Belgium and England easily go through. I think Tunisia and Panama, doesn't matter what they do against each other. I think England and Belgium both get 2 wins against them. And just the winner is going to come down to who wins Belgium versus England, which I think Belgium would. Doesn't mean England's a good team. I don't think they are. It's just that Tunisia and Panama is just so much worse in that group. They don't have to, like, even if you replace them with, like, Tunisia with Sweden, it's like that makes it a so much more interesting group. But Tunisia is just way far down there. That the probably the most boring game of the tournament, or maybe the game, Pat, that you put the most action on is that Tunisia-Panama game, because they're going to want. Because the thing about, and this is a tip as far as when these groups come around, when the 2 worst teams, and this is why I said I think the most interesting matches are when the 2 best teams and the 2 worst teams face each other, is that the 2 worst teams know that in order to advance out of their group, they're going to have to beat one another. Like, a draw is worse for both of them. Getting 1 point out of the easiest match. Like, they want all 3. So a lot of the Tunisia-Panama match could actually be like an over, because they're both going to be aggressive because they both want to win. Rather than when Tunisia plays Belgium, Tunisia is looking for the draw. If they get a draw, they're celebrating in their hotel. So you think they're really going to push forward and try to force the attack there? Sometimes these teams, Panama is looking to, they play Belgium, and it's like, as long as we don't lose more than 2-0, they're happy. Because the goal difference may matter.
Well, okay, this is the very last game of the qualification round overall. Right now, it is, let's see here, for Panama to win, it would be plus 250. For Tunisia to win, it'd be plus 120. So Tunisia is significantly better than Panama? That's a thing?
I guess. I don't think that I know more of the Panamanian players. The Panamanian players, some of them play in MLS, so that should tell you all you know.
So it doesn't sound like you're a Panamaniac, so that's not good for them. You need to be on Team Panama here. They're plus 250.
I guess so. If we're putting all our action down in that game, let's go for Panama. Fine, why not?
Yeah, what's more likely to happen here? That Brazil wins the entire World Cup or Panama beats Tunisia?
I'd actually, when you put it that way, I'll probably take Panama.
Right,
Brazil has so many other teams to go through.
Yeah, so this is just one game. It comes down to it. Now you're only getting 2.5 to 1 instead of 4 to 1, but it's just one game. They can do this, or you can bet the correct score. Oh, I'm going to be all over everyone's going to be all over this game. It's the last game to really get in with two garbage teams. This is going to be fun. Goals over 2.5 goals in this game is what's going on right here. We can go over that, right?
Right. I mean, the lines will change as the groups come out. So you're going to have opportunities to seize, especially, dumb public money that goes into some of these markets where, a player that gets a knock in a game, or a player is rotated out, the motivation of certain teams, if we have a group winner that's already like by the third game, like the third game doesn't matter. Their 6 points guarantees them to win the group because their other win came against the second place team. So like if they both tied, they'd still win the group. So you may have a German team, that are essentially rotating and playing their second tier players, and the lines will change accordingly. And that's why you may see a Mexico beat Germany, or those types of games, depending on which games come before one another's, that you could pounce on. Oh yeah, people are betting on Brazil, but it's like they've already advanced pretty much. Like it's a good time to jump on the other team or the under or something like that.
With Belgium, I know you're not a huge fan of England here, but is the scoring more concentrated for the English side than it would be for the Belgian side?
I would say so. Harry Kane leads the line. He's going to captain the side. We know for Tottenham that when we play Tottenham in daily fantasy, typically it's if you want the floor, you take Christian Eriksen, who plays for Denmark. But if the upside and shots and everything, it all goes through Harry Kane. So they're expected to play with a sole central forward. So yeah, for daily formats, it would be in this group. If I had to pick a group Golden Boot award or bet type of thing, although Lukaku leads the line for Belgium, like Hazard and Mertens could score as many goals as he can, but I don't see if England gets a total of 4 goals in this group, like I'd probably say Kane has 3 of the 4.
Okay, so final group, Group H. You had alluded to this earlier. This is a super fun one. Is this your favorite group of all?
No, I hate for daily fantasy. I hate these types of groups.
No, but just to watch it, like this seems like it seems like almost, I want to say anyone can win, but like it's the only group that we have where the favorite, which is Colombia, isn't a minus favorite. They're plus 125. Poland's plus 175. Senegal's 5 to 1. Japan is 7 to 1. Theoretically, could anyone win this group?
Theoretically, yes. Japan, as the underdog in this group, has the better chance than any other group to win the group, but that still doesn't mean that
they're going
7 or 8 to 1 is worth taking either.
Is it going to be Colombia and Poland, or could Senegal sneak in here then?
Senegal, similar to Nigeria, young team. Sadio Mane, who plays for Liverpool, plays for Senegal. It's a typical kind of African side that a lot of individual talent. How well they play as a team is going to determine their fate. Japan, not so much. Japan's going to have to play much more defensive. Shinji Okazaki doesn't really scare you as a central forward for Japan when he kind of plays as kind of a poacher for Leicester City. But yeah, the two big teams are going to be Colombia and Poland. And if either of them, if they won the group, to me, it's a toss up. Poland has Robert Lewandowski. So for a goal scoring perspective, behind the defense, they send in these crosses from wide positions. He could put up 3 goals against any of these teams. Colombia has James Rodriguez, who plays for Bayern Munich, a great South American playmaker. And, Colombia could beat any of these teams 3-0. Polish is I think, much more solid defensively. To me, the value, if you were to take it, would be in the Poland to win the group, and possibly Senegal to advance. But I still think Colombia are the favorites. I think from a goal scoring perspective. I mean, because if you shut down Lewandowski for Poland, you kind of shut down all of Poland's attack. Colombia has much more. I mean, they're playing with Falcao, and he's on the wrong side of 30. Cuadrado is some of these older Colombian players may not be good enough. I mean, that's why Colombia to go to win the World Cup is a ridiculous long shot. But I think it still comes down to Colombia versus Poland, and to me, it's a coin flip. So I'll take the better odds on Poland than Colombia.
Take the better odds on Poland. All right, that might be one I have to get in on as well. Any final props or anything like that you've come across? Anything that you're interested to see how it breaks down, or are you going to try to wait until like the knockout round to really see what the bracket's going to look like?
No, I'm although I don't bet all that much on soccer. Well, I haven't. I didn't last week. Maybe I will. You've convinced me, Pat. But I have to make sure, Pat, that I save up my bankroll for that Tunisia-Panama game.
That's a game. I mean, that's a game that I'm looking forward to now the most of any in this entire World Cup.
Right, but like I said before, as the games progress, the odds will change, and depending on the situations that are at hand, there's a lot of public money that goes into this that doesn't pay attention to certain angles, because there's going to be so many props that you could correlate together that from right now, it's hard to gauge. I mean, to me, these look normal, but I mean, as the results come in, even from group to group, because then you could start looking what group winners are going to play other group second place teams. You could look at the bracket and go, like, if this upset happens, like, this is the path that these teams are going to go down. And then from there, instead of waiting for the round of 16 to go, well, now I'm going to bet. It's like, no, that's when you should be taking like the World Cup to win odds or a golden boot prop or something like that, when people aren't paying attention as much since the group stage is still going on.
All right, that was the Pat Mayo Experience presented by Jagermeister. Give your beer a real shot this summer with an ice-cold Jagermeister. Shot of Jagermeister. Sounds delicious. I'll be drinking them at 6 a.m. to get ready for some of these games. And I'll come into work and do like real boozed up golf shows, and we'll see how that goes. Probably not going to do that, people. It's just a joke. We'll see. But I did want to ask you, what network has World Cup in the States to air? Fox?
Yeah, Fox has the World Cup, and they spent a ton of money on the rights, and then the United States didn't make it. So now most of the commentators will be calling the games off of a screen, which to me is a travesty. But they'll be on the main on your local Fox affiliate. I mean, you're not going to be able to miss.
You say that until Panama plays Tunisia, and they're like, well, it is 2:00 in the afternoon. Judge Judy's probably going to get a lot better ratings here, and they just play that instead, and that gets relegated to like FS9.
Well, I hope it's a Judge Judy rerun, because I'll bet on that.
That would be good news. Well, you always know. You can always tell with Judge Judy who she's going for and going against right off the... My grandma can just pick them out like that, though the losing plaintiffs that show up in Judge Judith Scheinland's courtroom. But for sponsorships, Jagermeister, drink all the Jagermeister you want, that you can, go do that. Ancestry.com should have sponsored this World Cup, because you have all these Americans who have no one to root for, so they need to dig into their gene pool to see who they can root for in this. As it turns out, I'm far more Scandinavian. I'm far more white than I ever thought, so I might have to go for Sweden now, or Denmark potentially.
Pat, you missed. Obviously, you don't watch Fox that often. I missed that one of the sponsors is 23andMe.
Oh, is it?
The whole marketing message is get your genealogy so you can determine who to root for in the World Cup.
See, smart. This is what the people should be doing. It's a great marketing. There is no better marketing tie-in than this. What do you think the ratings are going to be like for this World Cup for America only? Is it going to be way down? Like crappy time zone and no US equals I don't care?
No, I think the ratings are going to actually be higher than the last World Cup.
Oh, okay. How come?
Because there's an extreme amount of interest in the World Cup. And while to get on my soapbox, the top league in the United States as far as watchability is concerned is Liga MX, which is the Mexican league. The Liga MX final got more viewers than the UEFA Champions League final. So when we talk about 23andMe, finding out your genealogy is that, United States are naturally a country of immigrants. So just because you're watching, you act as if in the past World Cups, people were watching because of the United States. But, I come from New York City, and I used to go to soccer games where people, I had Polish friends that rooted for Poland, and I had Italian friends that rooted for Italy, and Irish friends that rooted for Ireland, and African, Jamaica, all of that. And that's what's great about the United States as a country, and Canada, I guess, all North Americans, that since we're from very diverse backgrounds, that the World Cup is for all. And just because the United States isn't in it doesn't mean that it's not, relevant to a majority of people in this country.
You don't think the wonky time zone is going to kill the casual interest?
A little bit. I mean, if you go on a obviously, if you kind of regulate it based on time, I mean, just like when the Olympics, when most of the live coverage is at 3 a.m. because of the time zones. Yeah, I get it, but from a like a kind of a per capita, based on what would be on at like 8 a.m. or 11 a.m. I mean, yeah, you're going to primarily deal with a lot of people at work, and it may be on at bars. But what do you compete? I mean, what could Fox complain about? If I think it beats out Judge Judy, Pat. I think it does.
Listen, I know soccer makes a lot of money, but Judge Judy makes like $80 million a year. Someone's watching Judge Judy. I swear to God, it can't be only my grandparents. That's all I'll tell you. It's everyone's grandparents potentially.
I've heard Judge Judy referred to as the judicial Messi.
See, I thought she was going to get put on the Supreme Court, but that was me. I don't even know if she's a real judge or not. But if you're in New York City, are they opening up all the obviously you're going to have your localized bars to whatever country is coming up here just because it's New York City. Toronto has the exact same thing where if, let's say, Italy was in it, you could go to the Italian bar, but little Portugal is going to be on fire every time that Portugal goes. They're going to open up the bars at 7 a.m. so people can go in. They'll pass the city ordinance so people can go drink and get wasted before work. Are they going to do the same thing in New York?
Oh, yeah, it's all the time. I mean, I'm in Louisville, Kentucky now, and they're going to be 3 or 4 bars, even in the middle of Kentucky, that it's going to be World Cup fever all the time. I mean, we supported groups here in Louisville. I mean, when I was back in New York City, yeah, and it's all over the place, and it's not necessarily just for the United States. And you could go to any little pocket and find plenty of soccer fans that no matter what country you're rooting for, all get together and celebrate, every 4 years, the beautiful game.
All right. So what you're saying is any excuse to drink early in the day, people are all in on it.
Pretty much. A beer and an omelet, I guess, is what I'm looking forward to. And maybe I'll put some Jaeger in my omelet.
See, there you go. Shot of Jaeger in your beer. Boom. It's a nice cold shot of Jaeger. You got to get some of that in you. Jordan Cooper, thank you for being on the line. Tell everyone where they can follow you, read your work, and subscribe to your podcast, which I'm guessing are a bit more informational because the other person you talk to likely has a bit of knowledge.
You didn't do all that bad. You came in, even though I know your disdain for the sport, it wasn't that bad. But you could find me at BlenderHD on Twitter, and if you go to rotowire.com, we'll have all the official stats that you could sort out and comprehend from there for daily fantasy formats. World Cup preview articles. There'll be slate previews for DraftKings and other sites. There we have a Slack chat, which is for subscribers only, that has almost about 300 people in for, those late minute lock, cheap fullbacks are in and who's lining up where type of questions, and daily podcast that will be coming out every day that the World Cup is there. And that's at rotowire.com.
And we can catch you on the slate on DK Live as well, right?
Whenever there's soccer, I'm there.
Exactly. So we're going to have a ton of DraftKings sites. Oh, I need to get, before we go, who are you picking to win? Germany?
Yeah, I'm boring. I go with the mathematical favorite. Although Brazil's close, but Germany has the easier path, I believe, based on if you put all the favorites in, basically Germany gets matched up against Colombia, on their road to I think France and Germany have the easier brackets. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, if I was going to bet on anyone, it's going to be Germany. But for 4-1 odds, I saved the opportunities to put several $100s of bets down. I'm waiting for the Tunisia-Panama game.
All right, that'll do it. I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me on Twitter at ThePME, same as Facebook, same as Insta. And you can subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience on iTunes, Audio Boom, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podomatic, anywhere basically where you can download podcasts. You can find Pat Mayo Experience uncut, free, and listen to it on demand. And always, if you're watching this on DK Live or YouTube, give it a like. It goes a long way to help keep the show free so I can bring on good guests with good information when I have the worst information going. Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you for watching. Drink Jager! I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!